Blazing Saddles is a classic American comedy film released in 1974, which continues to captivate audiences thanks to its sharp social satire. The movie centers on a small town in the Wild West, whose peaceful life is threatened by dark schemes. The opening of Blazing Saddles, 1974, revolves around a plot to seize the land of the town of Rock Ridge. Governor Hedley Lamar devises a plan to drive the townspeople away so that a new railroad can be built through their land. To achieve his sinister goal, Lamar appoints a black railroad worker named Bart as the new sheriff, expecting that the racist townsfolk will reject him. However, the plan backfires when Bart teams up with a washed-up gunslinger named Jim, Gene Wilder, to earn the townspeople's respect and foil Lamar's plot to destroy Rock Ridge. Below are 15 strange facts about Blazing Saddles you might not know. Fact 1. The film was almost banned right before its release. When Mel Brooks screened the very first cut of Blazing Saddles for Warner Brothers, the studio executives were stunned into silence. They didn't know whether to laugh or call their lawyers. The film was full of profanity, jokes about race, religion, and gender, all the things Hollywood at the time considered sacred no-go zones. One studio executive said bluntly, "We can't release this. If this goes to theaters, the whole country will riot." But Brooks just smiled, put on his sunglasses, and said, "If they riot, at least they'll be laughing while they do it." He convinced Warner Brothers that it was precisely this offensiveness that made the film honest, and he was right. When it was released, the film shocked audiences, but it also made them laugh until they couldn't breathe. From day one, Blazing Saddles received both critical praise and box office success. Audiences were drawn to its fearless humor, its memorable characters, and its bold approach to sensitive topics like racism and bigotry. Despite early fears about its controversial content, the film resonated with viewers and was praised for its daring, originality, and honesty. In the politically tense climate of post-Martin Luther King Jr. America, the movie was embraced as a clever, collective pressure release. Fact 2. The role of Sheriff Bart almost went to Richard Pryor. One of the least-known facts, the person who wrote a big chunk of the dialogue for Blazing Saddles was Richard Pryor, the legendary black comedian known as the King of Radical Comedy. Mel Brooks originally wrote the role of Sheriff Bart for Pryor. He believed no one else could bring that mix of intelligence, wit, and very real racial pain to the character. But Warner Brothers said no. Pryor had a controversial past. He'd been arrested for drug possession, and his stand-up was considered too raw, too explicit. The studio worried the film would be labeled a black radical movie, Brooks argued, but in the end, he had to find someone else. When Cleavon Little, then a relatively unknown actor, came in to audition, he made Brooks laugh for 10 straight minutes. Brooks said, "He wasn't just Bart. He was the refined version of what Pryor would have done." Even so, Richard Pryor stayed on as co-writer, and it was Pryor who helped Brooks filter the racially charged lines so the film could be both shocking and truthful, without tipping into real hatred. Fact 3. Gene Wilder joined at the last minute and saved the movie. The role of Ake. The Waco Kid, Gene, was originally given to Maubizz Gyung, an Oscar-winning, well-respected actor, but on the very first day of shooting, he passed out drunk right in front of the camera. Mel Brooks immediately picked up the phone and called his friend Gene Wilder, star of The Producers. Wilder read the script and burst out laughing. "If I do this, I have to be allowed to do it my way." Brooks agreed on the spot. Gene Wilder's arrival completely changed the tone of the film. He brought calm, irony, and a strangely tender humanity into a movie full of lunatics. Audiences didn't just love him because he was funny. They loved him because behind the jokes was the face of a man who'd seen failure and still chose to stand on the side of what's right, even in a comedy. Fact 4. It was the first group fart scene in Hollywood history. One of the most famous scenes, and the one that was banned from TV for almost 20 years, is the campfire scene where the cowboys sit around eating beans and start farting nonstop. Mel Brooks said he always thought Westerns were way too clean. They ride horses, eat beans, sleep outdoors, and never fart. Come on. So he shot the scene as a kind of manifesto. Comedy has the right to tell the truth, even the smelliest truth. Audiences gasped and then roared with laughter. The scene went down in history as the first time Hollywood dared to show a real human bodily function played for honest laughs. Fact 5. The script was originally called Tex-Ex. Before it was called Blazing Saddles, Mel Brooks had a working title, Tex-Ex, a play on Malcolm X, the famous black activist. The idea was a black man in the Wild West, but Warner Brothers felt the title was politically dangerous because it referenced a symbol of racial struggle. So Brooks reluctantly changed it and chose Blazing Saddles, something that sounded Western, energetic, and a little crazy. When asked what it meant, Brooks laughed. "I don't know. It just sounded like somebody's butt was on fire." A social experiment disguised as comedy. Many people think Blazing Saddles is just a 90-minute joke, but underneath it is a very deliberate social experiment. Mel Brooks wasn't trying to make people laugh just to laugh. He wanted them to laugh and then realize why they were laughing. When a white character in the film shouts, "What? A black sheriff?" audiences laugh, but half a second later, they realize they're laughing at prejudice. And that's where Brooks wins. He turns laughter into a mirror. He turns a gag into an indictment of every kind of discrimination. Fact 6. Gene Wilder only agreed to do it when Mel Brooks promised him total freedom. At first, Gene Wilder was exhausted after a run of successful films. The producers, Young Frankenstein. When Mel Brooks sent him the Blazing Saddles script, Wilder got halfway through and put it down. He said, "Mel, what did you write? Is this a movie where you yell at society?" Brooks just grinned. "Greater than no. I'm yelling at the people who think they are society." That line made Wilder crack up. He called Brooks back and said, "Okay, I'll do it, but I want to be drunk, burn out, and absolutely honest on screen." Brooks said yes. He didn't touch a single one of Wilder's lines. The result was Jim the Waco Kid, the film's sad, gentle soul, a once legendary gunslinger, now a washed-up drunk, who is also the only person perceptive enough to see that Bart is a good man. In a world full of noise and fools, it's the alcoholic who sees clearly. That's the kind of upside-down logic only Brooks could pull off, where the failures become the real heroes. Fact 7. The film shattered every rule of the Western genre. On the surface, Blazing Saddles looks like a typical Western, a town, horses, a villain, a hero, some gunplay. But after the first 10 minutes, every rule goes out the window. Brooks turns the Western, a genre known for its seriousness and heroism, into a giant parody stage where every scene is a joke about Hollywood itself. In the movie, the camera sometimes shows the actual studio set. The main characters step out of the frame and talk to the audience. And there's even a scene where the cowboy brawl spills over into another movie set. All of that was intentional. Brooks wanted the audience to wake up from the movie illusion, to see that behind the Western myths were just flawed, ridiculous, very human people. Because of that playful chaos, Blazing Saddles is often cited as one of the very first American comedy films to do meta-cinema, to show that it knows it's a movie, paving the way for later films like Deadpool, Tropic Thunder, The Truman Show, and more. Fact 8. The fart scene was almost cut 10 times, and then became legendary. You can't talk about Blazing Saddles without talking about the bean and fart scene, the ultimate symbol of cinematic rebellion. When Brooks turned in the first cut, the Warner Brothers review board was horrified. One executive said, "There's no way we can show that in theaters. Audiences will walk out." But Brooks stood his ground. "This is real. Anyone who eats beans and doesn't fart is the one we should be worried about." He even told the editors to boost the sound, make the farts louder, longer. When they screened it for a test audience, people laughed so hard for 2 minutes straight that the studio had to keep it. That one scene broke Hollywood's polite rulebook and helped start a new wave of honest bodily comedy, where people were allowed to laugh at what real human bodies actually do. Later, when asked about it, Brooks said, "I just wanted to say we're all the same. White, black, whatever. Everybody farts crude, yes, but perfectly in line with Blazing Saddles." Fact 9. Mel Brooks played 3 different roles, and most viewers didn't notice. Mel Brooks wasn't just the director, he secretly played 3 roles in the same film, and most people didn't catch it on first viewing. He appears as Governor William J. Lepedemain, a vain, idiotic, woman-chasing politician who knows nothing. The old Jewish man in town. A brief but very Brooks moment with a thick Yiddish accent. The Yiddish-speaking director her in the fake film said at the end, Brooks explained, "Greater than I wanted to be everywhere, because I am the chaos in this movie." If you look closely, those 3 characters represent 3 sides of American society: corrupt politics, the governor; old tradition, the Jewish elder; mad art, the Yiddish director. And when those 3 collide, the film explodes, exactly the way Brooks likes it. Fact 10. The film was almost banned from American television for 20 years. After Blazing Saddles became a box office hit in 1974, a bunch of U.S. TV networks wanted to air it. Then the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, stepped in. They demanded more than 25 lines be cut because of racial slurs and profanity. Mel Brooks pushed back. Greater than, "If you cut all the jokes, what's left? Horse sounds." For nearly 2 decades, TV versions of Blazing Saddles were heavily censored. Lines were rewritten. The fart scene was cut. Some religious and racial gags were removed entirely. It wasn't until the 1990s, when audiences became more open to satirical takes on race, that HBO and others began showing the film in its original version. And only then did many people realize the movie wasn't promoting racism. It was mocking it. In a 1993 screening, Brooks famously said, "If this movie offends you, it's because it's talking about you." A line that was both sharp and courageous. Pure Mel Brooks. Fact 11. John Wayne was invited, but turned it down for being too dirty. Not many people know this. Western legend John Wayne, the very symbol of American cowboy masculinity, was invited by Mel Brooks to make a cameo in Blazing Saddles. Brooks wanted him to appear briefly, just a few lines, as a clever nod to classic westerns. But after reading the script, Wayne sipped his coffee and laughed. "Mel, I love it. I laughed all the way through, but I can't be in it. If I show up in this thing, every old lady in Texas will throw a Bible at me." Still, Wayne supported him. Greater than, "I'll be the first one to buy a ticket. Go make it your way. You're doing what I never could." That moment shows what Blazing Saddles really did. It tore down the stiff, squeaky clean cowboy image Hollywood had worshipped for decades and replaced it with something more honest, more human, and way funnier. Fact 12. A real punch happened on set. During the big chaotic fight scene at the end, the one where cowboys and townspeople are brawling and it spills into other movie sets, one extra playing a henchman accidentally punched another actor for real in the face, hard enough to make his nose bleed. Instead of yelling "cut," Brooks shouted, "Keep rolling." That's the movie. When he reviewed the footage, he loved the rawness and kept it in. It flashes by quickly in the final cut. Only sharp-eyed viewers notice. Later, he joked in an interview, "We're probably the only comedy in history where someone got punched for real and got paid extra for it." Fact 13. The ending was completely changed at the last minute. The original script ended like every other Western. Bart and Jim ride off on horseback into the sunset. But in the editing room, Brooks got bored. He told his editor, "We just spent an entire movie breaking every rule. Why end it like every other damn Western?" So he came up with a wild idea. Let the characters ride out of the Western yard into a real Hollywood studio lot, stop their horses, and then get into a limousine and drive away. That ending shattered the wall between fiction and reality, leaving audiences half confused, half delighted. Wait, what just happened? But that was Brooks' point. Blazing Saddles isn't just about the Old West. It's about America, about Hollywood, about performance itself. It tells you, yes, this was a movie. And yes, we were making fun of all of it. Fact 14. The film was added to the U.S. Library of Congress as a work to be preserved. In 2006, over 30 years after its release, Blazing Saddles was selected by the Library of Congress for the U.S. National Film Registry. A list of films deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. The irony. A film once called vulgar, offensive, and socially dangerous is now preserved alongside Citizen Kane and The Godfather. One member of the selection board wrote, "Greater than Mel Brooks did what no one else dared. He turned offense into a prayer for justice." Today, the original 35mm print of Blazing Saddles is stored in low-temperature archival conditions, a prank movie that became history. Fact 15. Mel Brooks once cried watching it 40 years later. At the 40th anniversary screening of Blazing Saddles in Los Angeles, 2014, Mel Brooks, then 88, sat among the audience. He watched the opening. Western music, dust, Bart riding into town. Then came the scene where the white townsfolk shout, "A black sheriff!" The audience burst into laughter, and Brooks lowered his head, eyes wet. Asked afterward, he said, "I cried because I realized the world had changed. Back then, I had to use comedy to say what no one was allowed to say. Now, at least, we can say it without getting our houses burned down." That moment made people realize Blazing Saddles isn't just a comedy. It's a landmark of artistic courage, a declaration that comedy can save the world if it tells the truth. What do you think about these facts? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.